No. Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry for the delay. We had a little bit of technical issues, but we should be ready to go now. So welcome. Today's kickoff. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Welcome to today's kickoff. What we're going to be talking about is introducing everybody to new PFA functionality that's going live with the November release. And you're here today or online because your department has been selected to go live in November. And we're going to talk today about how we can get you ready for this new functionality. Okay, so for those in the room, there's going to be about a week of validation sessions that are going to happen across the street in Jade. And then we'll go more, today we're going to go more into what that actually means and what that actually entails. So that's going to be just, the expectation is you come in on Monday, 9 o'clock with an hour lunch, 9 to 5. And the timing of this is dependent on which department you are. We've kind of broken it out into 2 separate weeks. So if you're a week 1 department, you come in, that's primarily going to be DOF, Fiscal, and DGS CFS. So if you are online as the CFS department, I don't think you need to worry about it because DGS CFS will cover for you. And then everybody else is going to come in week 2. So that's the current plan. And who should be coming to these sessions? We need people who run your labor distribution, who process your allocations, as well as who validates your PFA. So depending on your department, that could be the same person, it could be different people, but we need at least one person who does each. And because of our space limitations, we only are allowing 4 people to come at one time. So this should be people who are more senior, who are able to actually do this validation and who do this today actively. Okay. To help us know to tell us who you're going to be sending, we need you to fill out and submit the task BUSN943. And so this was sent out this morning. It should be in your department liaison's email inbox. We have some printouts in the room. And the goal is, we know it's a short turnaround time, but the goal for this would be to get this in by next Tuesday, 10/1. So hopefully it's not too difficult. Just to give us some names, some emails, check their scheduling, and then submit that to the CMO mailbox. Or if you have it in person today, if you're able to, you can give it to us today. Then on Wednesday, or as soon as we're able to, we have time commitments because we have to set up the environment for users to get their access in our test environment set up, and then we're going to get those calendar invites out when we get the response. The response template looks like this. We get a lot of questions about GUID. It's one of those things that we need it if you have it. Otherwise, we can figure it out. In this test environment, you'll use that GUID to log in. And so when you come in, we'll have a printout for you of what your login IDs are and what the password is. So, like I said, it's a short turnaround, 10/1. Please let us know sooner than later if you think you might have issues meeting that date, or if your department liaison is out. You can send an email to fiscal.cmo or CMO, fiscal.cmo@fiscal.ca.gov. Okay. So, I just realized because of the delay, I didn't introduce myself, but my name is Corey Cortez. I'm with the Change Management Office here at Fiscal, and I'm going to be handing it over to Kathy Brown. She's on our PFA team. She'll be able to introduce herself better.
Good afternoon, everyone. So we want to move on to our expectations of who will be in the room to assist you. So we will have SMEs, system matter experts, in the room to assist you. It's a collaboration between SCO, Fiscal, and Finance to and the departments to make this kickoff the session successful. Sorry. So SCO will be in the room. They'll be in the room if there's any questions about the PFA validation tool, and if there's any questions regarding SCO's rules as far as the PFA process. Fiscal staff will be in the room to update your allocation configuration for the PFA validation if there is any needed. And then we'll also be in the room to assist the departments with the analysis of the allocations and the PFA validation. Finance staff will be in the room to answer any policy questions around the PFA process, and they'll be in the room as well to assist departments with their analysis and that PFA validation. Press the right button, good. So during this session, we would like the departments to complete a full validation so that we can flush out any bugs that need to be flushed out before we go live in November. So we're asking the department to perform these 9 steps. So the first thing we want you to do is confirm your PFA configuration is accurate, and we'll cover that a little bit more later. If your department happens to enter personal activity sheets, we'll have you do that as well. Then at that point, you'll be ready to run your labor distribution process. If you have statistic journals, we're going to need you to bring those, enter them in the test environment we're using, and enter those journals. And at that point, you would run your allocation journals. So, and after that process is complete, we're going to ask you to analyze and confirm if your balancers are accurate as far as allocations and the PFA validation. You may or may not encounter any errors. There'll be staff to help you in the room if errors are encountered. We do have an appendix in the back that goes over 3 of the errors that could be encountered. As always, we want to work together with the department. So if there's any issues during testing, please let us know and we'll do our very best to resolve it. So then at the end, if everything goes as planned, we're going to ask you to certify your completion of your PFA validation. So before you leave the session, you're going to run what's called a PFA tree report in the test environment. This isn't in production yet. And you'll use this report to validate if the PFA you're sending over to SCO would be accepted and approved. So we're asking that the departments bring the following materials, because there's items, obviously, there's source documents you have at home that will help both of us through this process. So we already covered that if you have statistic journals, please bring them with you. If you enter any current year general ledger entries that are used for the manual allocation for PFA, we're asking you to bring those. And again, if you enter personal activity sheets, we're asking you to bring those. So this last bullet is kind of in conjunction with the previous slide. So in order to validate that the previous slide, the PFA tree report, we're asking departments to go to your commitment control budget details page, and under your BU and your CC Appropriate Ledger group, and to run that report. So this is a budget details report. The reason we call it a report, if you see on the slide, you can export it to Excel, download it. It's up to you whether you want to print it, if you want to bring it electronically. Just make sure if you have it electronically, you're able to access your email here at the Fiscal location. So, and this gives you the breadcrumbs at the top of the page to tell you how to get to the budget details page. And then, like I said before, you have the, and you're going to want to do it by enactment year. So this example shows 2018, but for any enactment years that you use through the PFA process, please make sure you run a budget details report for each enactment year. So we're asking for feedback on a couple of questions that we have. The first question is, do you want Fiscal to run your labor and allocation process for you? The reason we're asking this is because, as you all know, running labor and running allocations can take time. So we know your time is valuable. We want to make the best use of your time. So you're more than free to come in and run the processes on your own. Just please know that it could take an hour for each process to run and to go to completion. So it's basically up to the department whether they would like Fiscal to do it or if they would like to come in during the week of October 7th and do it themselves. The other question we have is, are there any critical business processes that are going to prevent you from meeting your scheduled date? So this is the tool. This is Menti. This is the tool we're going to use to obtain your feedback. So if one person from each department can go on the internet and access, put in the URL address www.menti.com. And when you log on, please use the code 168833. And both those questions should be available for you to answer, to provide us the feedback needed. So I'll go ahead and give everybody a couple minutes to do that, and then we'll proceed. Yeah, sure.
The first question is, will we be using scripts or our own department's data?
So you will be, the test environment we're using is a copy from production. So you'll be using your own data. Repeat the question.
Will we be using scripts or our own department's data?
Okay. So you will not be using scripts. That's why we're asking you to bring in your experts that do this out at the department for labor allocations and the PFA process. So we will put up high-level steps that we need to be completed, that we need to have completed during the session, but we won't have scripts.
The next question is, will you send a list of items we need to bring? For example, our statistic journals, etc.
A detailed example, or in the previous slide, we're asking that you bring a copy of your statistic journals or your activity sheet, thank you, with you. And again, you can bring paper, you can bring it electronically, just make sure you can access your email from Fiscal.
And then, hey everybody, we posted the ServiceNow link in the WebEx chat box. So if you can use that and get this presentation online in ServiceNow, and then you can use that for your reference.
Question? Hold.
So I guess my question is, when we run the LD and sometimes we have the budget error or, LD not sent to GL, so how do we have to fix it before we come here or just that? Because sometimes it takes overnight process.
Mm-hmm. So that's a good question. So we'll be using a test environment So our plan is we're going to use the September labor file, which is for August, in the test environment. So the department, our goal is that you won't be able to run it in the test environment, because our goal is when you come in and you run it in the test environment, we're looking for any errors that it may just be the department, they're used to the errors and fixing them, or it may be some kind of configuration that we look into. So that's what we're trying to have any of those fallouts happen during this testing session.
And we have one more question online. Which period/fiscal year will you use as the test data?
Another good question. So because a lot of departments are in different places throughout the fiscal year. So our goal is to run labor. And like I said, that has to be the September file, which will be in August. And it'll all depend on if a department is in August right now, which would be period 2 for 1920 fiscal year, then they can use that data. However, if a department is, say, in June, then your labor should already have been run. That data will be in the test environment. So then you just have to you do two different processes. You would run labor in August for August, and then you would run your allocations in the other month. And we'll go into that and explain that more during this session. Okay. So hopefully everybody's had time to use Menti and provide us your feedback. So we're going to cover the process that's done today for your PFA. And I'm sure you're probably all already know what a PFA is and how the process works. We're just going to cover it at a high level. So your PFA is your proposed plan by the department to allocate the cost paid from one fund to another fund or appropriations. So currently today, each PFA request includes one primary appropriation and one or more special items of appropriation. So the process, you start the process by obviously running your labor, running your allocations. If everything's good and posted, then you would run your PFA report in Fiscal. Ensure that your transactions are reflected in the PFA report. At that point, departments validate the PFA report to determine that the correct PFA adjustments were made and posted through online GL journals, labor distribution, and allocation journals. At that point, the department fills out a manual TR or transaction request for the PFA, and they send it to SEO for processing. So this slide talks a little bit about this is part of your month-end close process, so it probably looks really familiar to the departments. So the process for departments to follow in preparing their PFA before closing the period is you want to confirm all your subsystem transactions are posted and the period is closed. You want to run your labor distribution process, run your allocation process, view your allocation results to ensure the balances are what they should be. You're going to review and post your allocation journals. At that time, you're going to perform your agency and PFA reconciliation. And then you're going to submit a manual PFA transaction request to SEO. So this slide talks about what functionality will go live in November as in regards to the PFA tool. So we want to make sure that when you come in, your PF validation is going to be for one and only one primary item of appropriation per PFA transaction. That's different than it is today. Obviously, you want your debits and credits between the primary item of appropriation and your corresponding special items of appropriation to balance. Your PFA validation will occur in Fiscal will also occur in Fiscal on eligible labor distribution, allocation, and GL journal transactions. So the PFA validation tool will change your business process in November, as we covered in the previous slides. So now your approved PFA letters will be stored in Fiscal and called a PFA tree. These trees will be used for systematic validation of the PFA transactions that are entered in Fiscal. So the PFA validation will systematically check your online journals, labor distribution, allocation journals, to ensure that they're following the PFA rules. Journals will need to be split by primary item of appropriation into multiple journals to pass PFA validation. That's why we're asking you to go to review your budget details page so that you can identify which item of appropriation will go through the PFA validation process. So the PFA validation runs on each individual journal created by the PFA allocation. At this point, at this step, your final step is going to be, you'll still continue to manually complete the PFA transaction request and send it to SEO until July 2020 release, when the PFA interface is implemented. So we wanted to show you this slide to give you kind of a before and after, so you'll know that your allocations will look different if you go and look at steps and groups. So in this example, for this department, they're going from 7 steps to 14 steps. Then the steps highlighted in the after spreadsheet in blue are what's been new and updated. And this is our appendix where I discussed earlier. We have the list of the PFA budget exceptions that may or may not be encountered. There could be other errors that are encountered, but we'll handle those at that time during the session. And then this is your post-go live activities. So if after the session you find you need to update your PFA letter, that would be sent to DOF and after DOF approves it to SEO. We may or may not need to update your Fiscal configuration. So that would need a CMR, and you would submit a ticket through our FSC service now. Then if any incidents arise, we wanted to specify where those questions would go. So if you're going to, obviously the department updates their PFA letter, then they need to request approval from DOF and SEO. If it's questions in regard to the PFA validation tool, Fiscal SEO will handle those questions. If it's an allocation configuration, Fiscal will handle and work on that incident. Allocation statistics and labor distribution, that's handled by the department. So that's all I have today to present. If there's any questions, please feel free to ask them. If not, thank you for taking the time to join us today, and have a nice day.
All right, we have a few questions online. First one is, what testing environment will be used for this exercise?
So we will be using a test environment called CV1.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, for the cost allocation process changes, will Fiscal be updating that for us? Could you expand or discuss that topic further?
So if I go back to this previous slide, bear with me here. Fiscal, we will make these updates for you. So we'll make the after. So anything in blue, Fiscal will make the updates for you. And when you come in for testing in the test environment, our goal is for what you see in the test environment will be what you see in production.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, for BUs that do not run cost allocation, for example, we perform manual GL allocations, how will that be picked up by this new process?
So let me introduce Anthony. Sorry, I'm horrible with names. Everybody knows me, knows that. And he'll go ahead and address that question. He's representing SEO.
Okay, so on a previous slide, I don't know which slide it was, but it was the one that explained Oh, yeah, I do have control of the laptop. Thanks, Corey. So at the bottom of this slide, it mentions that PFA validation occurs on specific GL journals that have SEO types of transaction that are flagged for PFA validation. So that's going to be PFA corrections, clearing account reclass / manual allocation, and estimated / advanced PFA. So yeah, those, as long as the manual GL journal is under one of those SEO types, it will be picked up by PFA validation.
Thank you. Good questions. Any more? No? Okay, well then we will see you either the week of the October 7th or the second week, which I think is October 14th. Yes. Oh, yes. Let me take you back and show the screen that told them how to log on to Menti. So we've gotten one response so far. So if the 10 departments that are scheduled to come in, if you could please respond either yes or no, and I didn't clarify that before. Yes, you do want us to do it, or no, you don't want us to do it. And for both questions. So I'll go ahead and leave this slide up if there's no more questions. That's all we have for you today. Thank you again for coming. Hello, I'm back again. So I wanted to share some additional information I received about Menti. If you can respond to our questions within the next 4 hours, it would be greatly appreciated because the code will expire. So if you wait till after the 4 hours, obviously it won't work. So that's all I have. Thank you.